look around and see young white people. These laws are in the books. What are you demanding of your community? We are not, are between charter schools and between homeschooling and between now new progressive schools coming out. Who is left in our schools? When I say I'm tired, I'm getting old. And the recognition of what the powers, who they are. We're talking about going to lobby. Do you know how to lobby? What education do you have? We just heard some information about voting, which wasn't correct. How do you educate yourself in order to educate your community? White supremacy culture is alive, breathes the engine in Vermont. How do you adequately, sufficiently address your biases to be able to understand that? Thank you, my brother Jeff, who stood by me in that room as we heard something I thought I would never hear. I'd like to give you another word, South African, Ubuntu. I am because you are. I am because you are. You are because of me. Let's change the dynamics. Let's look at how we perpetuate the system so that we don't have to hear those continuing stories that are not changing. I suggest as we move forward, for those young people who are interested, please, Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform, we need your energy, we need your youth. Why aren't you joining us? That's what I want to know. I'm giving you a direct thing. Please join us. We send out all kinds of information which talks about the school to prison pipeline. And you are witnessing a mother who's educated, who's worked in human services for racial justice and in education, and has lived that life, and looking at another generation. So thank you for the personal stories, that's needed, but when you look at organizing, they got past the personal stories. When you look at civil rights organizing, the personal stories got them to the table, and that's all you're going to stay at. You need to be able to get your lawyers involved. You need to get your media involved, young folks. You need to also check in with your elders.
Thank you. I still want to give, and I mean 5 minutes for questions, and then we can move to. Anyone has any questions? Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more about the microaggressions?
Great. We're actually going to go into that in a minute, so
Oh, okay.
great. We're going to hold your thought.
Okay. Help.
Anyone else?
I just want to tell a quick story about the white power structure and just kind of trying to expose how hidden it can be. I'm not trying to call them out because I think there's a huge number of advocacy groups that say they're advocating for low-income populations or people of color. They're actually not. And so I had an unfortunate experience with the Dignity in Schools Coalition. I called them a couple of months ago. I said, I'm organizing with people of color. I hear you're working on a suspension bill. Let's see it. Let's collaborate. Let's make this happen. I would love to have people give feedback, and then I would love to bring people out and let's build power. Didn't hear back from them. 2 months later, I had an hour and a half long conversation basically calling them out. I was like, what happened? What are you guys doing? Their funding for their grants running out, right? Like, they do this for their job. I'm not getting paid right now to do this. I'm living in my parents' basement because I'm doing this for it's like, for people's lives, right? Like, people's lives are on the line. So they want to pass something small quick. The bill's shitty, in my opinion, right? There's no carrot, there's no stick, there's no input. I said, who's on your coalition? How many teachers are there, right? Like, teaching is challenging work. I taught for 6 years. Teachers need to be at the table. They need to be in partnership with parents. They need to be in partnership with students. There are 0 teachers and 0 parents and students on that coalition. Who is this bill serving? The white power structure. So they can say they're doing something about it, and then 3 years down the line, we're going to end up in the same exact place as their criminal justice bill. No changes, right? Like, it's this false leadership, false solutions. And these are very hard to see, because when I was looking at a state at what was going on here, I said, wow, that's great that Vermont's working on these issues, right? You have to dig into it. You have to understand how the white power structure works. It's scary because it looks good and it's not. And these are good-hearted people that mean well, and they're caught up in it, right? Like, they don't even, anyways.
Yeah, I think
That's my question. How are we gonna expose the white power structure? What are we gonna do?
I think part of it is any solution is only as good as its analysis. And I think that the more that we teach others how to have that ability to have the analysis, because I think that oftentimes, we get distracted by the shiny objects, and there are a lot of weapons of mass destruction, as my friend told me about. And so sometimes something looks good because it's all dressed up and it's all pretty,
It's really good.
and everything like that, and we fail to do our homework and just scratch the surface a bit, and we realize that it's fool's gold. So I think that we really do have to work very hard at training and teaching young kids. And I won't rely on the educational system. As I told you, I was from Louisiana, and you know about education there. But most of my education came outside of the classroom, having elders teach me certain things about who I was, that I was a reflection of a great people. So I think that that's part of, again, going back to education. How do we do that? Well, we might have to organize like they did some of the freedom schools. We have to go back to our community. I'm just saying, because if it ain't gonna happen there, excuse me, if it isn't gonna happen there, then we have to embolden ourselves in some way, allow our allies. And one last thing, I was thinking about Malcolm X quote.
Come on.
You'd have to be a fool to allow your enemy to teach your children.
Yes. Thank you.
Wow.
And all we have to do is look at the boarding schools for American Indians as an example of the power of educating people out of understanding who they are. And we know that kids who have a strong identity, a sense of who they are, fare much better in school. You don't even have to do, that's like a no-brainer. I don't even know why they did the research study. But there's a research. Then there's a meta-analysis of all the research.
And the Ford Foundation grant funding.
Yeah, I might get some grant funding. So I just wanted to say that to you, is that I think that that's the big piece. And there's some people in this room who could teach all of us how to have an eye to do a critical analysis, and then we just keep spreading it out. But I'm all for the freedom schools.
And I want, for people who want to know how to get in contact, I'll just throw out right quick, there's a bunch of different organizations represented here, but at first glance, if you're on Facebook, you can go to Black Lives Matter Vermont, and then I'll just shoot you to the different peeps that are organizing in the different topic matters, criminal justice. But we definitely need to, because this is just this is having to do with Black lives, so we need to support all the efforts as a united front to eradicate racism. We'll take one more question and then we'll give the floor.
I'm wondering,
Can you state who you're with, please?
Okay, hi, I'm Rachel. I'm with Central Vermont Surge.
I just wanted to hear that.
I'm really nervous. I'm wondering, like thinking about Vermont and the fact that it is 97% white, and like we've been talking about that in Surge, and that like our efforts are going to look different than it's going to look in other states and like in other cities. And I guess I'm wondering, like I'm hearing the call outs for like joining these different movements, joining these different efforts, and like just thinking about Surge having like relationships of accountability like with Black Lives Matter. And I'm just like wondering if anyone has thoughts on that, like how that would look similar in Vermont or how that would look different, like how we can work together or have like relationships of accountability.
I'll say that just to be sure that I think that we all want to make relationships, and we realize that being a 97% white state, that we as Black folks have to work in tangent with white folks in order to have racial justice. So we're with you, and I would say that if you're going to be here for the rest of the day, to continue to follow with us and come to our events, and we can connect. And the whole point of Surge and part of Fisher and Jade and Sarah leading that part, in terms of, if you weren't here earlier, in terms of the white anti-racist organizing, Surge groups are going to be meeting at 1 to discuss white organizing and how to support Black Lives Matter. So I encourage you to stick around and with us. And
Let me take a swing at that too.
But I want to move on because it's noon and we still have
Just very briefly. Okay.
Brief swing. Half a swing.
half an hour. A bun.
Hit it out of the park.
Microaggressions voice.
What about the I Am Vermont?
Right. Yeah.
That's coming up.
What I wanted to say is that I have actually been participating with Surge already, okay, over in the Opera House in Plainfield. I've sat in those meetings, and I know those people. That's why I actually called her out when she said, when I asked her who she was. Other thing is that Cindy has already been communicating with me about what are some of the things that Justice for All is doing. I sent her a list to include the petition and a number of other things, and I've also passed it on to the entire Surge list. So I'm already working in conjunction with what you guys are doing, and I do think it should be a broader coalition, if you will, and I'm also working in conjunction with what Black Lives. I'm all about what Black Lives Matter is all about as well. So I think, we can do this.
So I think if people have demands, people have questions for legislators, people have thoughts, experience, that's what we're going to be doing now after we're done presenting the I Am Vermont 2 project. We're going to be going to room 10 and we're going to be having lunch with the legislators, and the Women's Caucus and other legislators are going to be meeting with us. I ask that when you go down there that you leave the front seats open for people of color, because they may want to specifically be making demands to their legislators. This isn't just for people of color to be making demands or to stand up, so I encourage you all who identify as being white to also stand up and say what you need to say in solidarity as well, but to be mindful of yielding the floor to people of color, because there will only be an hour of time that they're yielding to us, which we're eating into right now. So I'm going to move along to the I Am Vermont 2 because it's on the agenda and people want to know a little bit about that. And I'm going to turn to Brittany to just talk a little bit about microaggressions, and then I'm going to talk about the I Am Vermont 2 project, which is all about microaggressions.
Just to piggyback on your question about microaggressions, it's a big issue, but I'm just going to give you a small example, and hopefully that feeds into the presentation very well. So my first experience of microaggression here in the state of Vermont was just walking aimlessly around and someone complimenting me on being beautiful because I had a small nose and small ears. That's a microaggression. And it's a compliment, but it's the lack of acknowledgement that there is a history behind certain things that you say, and not knowing that those things anchor histories, anchor emotions to that. And educating people of what those things are so important, especially with my initial statement that we are coming. There are more Black people coming to Vermont. There are more people of color coming to Vermont. And it's you guys, I think Vermont is in an amazing position to nip some of these things in the bud before they become a bigger issue. And
Great. So what I'm going to do in essence of time is I'm just going to really read off what the I Am Vermont 2 project is. I'm going to tell you what it is, who to get involved, our vision, our purpose, and our goal. And so I'm just going to start with that. So what is the I Am Vermont 2? So the I Am Vermont 2 photo story project was introduced in March of 2014 by Shanta Lee Evans Crowley and myself after the I Too Am Harvard initiative, which was designed at Harvard Law School, challenging, sharing people of color's experiences of racism and challenging racial microaggressions on Harvard University. The I Am Vermont 2 photo story project focuses on experiences of people of color throughout the state of Vermont, challenging racial microaggressions and the acts and behaviors that often go unchecked, though they are often offensive and racist. This project is an opportunity for dialogue and thinking for majority white communities who have been blinded from the impact that their participation in racial microaggression acts have on our community. The project will culminate in a series of events that include community dialogue, storytelling, and a photo exposition at the Vermont State House for the month of February 2017. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more. Who should be involved? This is actually a call for people of color. The who should be involved is we seek for people who self-identify as racial minorities, persons of color, of any age, class status, gender, or profession, living in the state of Vermont who have experienced racial microaggression since being here, and to share a picture, quote, and a brief story. A select amount of people will be chosen to have their photo displayed in the State House exposition. The space will be limited. The vision of this project is to begin a People of Color caucus. The I Am Vermont 2 project is only a tool. This tool is a tool to form authentic relationships of people of color around the state, to ultimately form a People of Color caucus, to ultimately create systemic change that we need for our Black and brown communities.
Amen.
So when we yes. What did you say? So this is not just a project. This is a project that will be led by people of color, multi-generational people of color throughout the state of Vermont. I am calling for your help in making this project come to fruition. The purpose of this project is to use art as a way of bringing awareness and education to Vermont communities about what racial microaggressions are and how they are specifically impacting people of color of Vermont. To bring people of color together to present who they are and dismantle the racist stereotypes that have been placed on us while being here in Vermont. The People of Color Caucus and our vision. The I Am Vermont 2 project is a tool to connect various people of color from around the state, form authentic partnerships to build a statewide People of Color caucus. This caucus is designed to further facilitate networking opportunities, collaborations, professional support, and community organizing. Community organizing is so key. We sat around this room and Shahar said very key things, that we cannot stay idle. We cannot just celebrate or remember Black Lives Matter on February 12th. We have to consistently be moved forward. And it is our job and it is our duty to do so. The goal of this project is to bring people of color together to collaborate, design, and have ownership of a statewide project. How many times have you heard an organization that is people of color run in Vermont? A project that is people of color run, an initiative, a bit anything. Very rarely do you hear these things. This is an opportunity for us of all generations, of all ages, classes, religions, of people of color around the state to come together and collaborate on a specific project that will bring fruition and celebrate our rich cultures and histories in our lives. We are going to collect hundreds of photos and stories from people around Vermont, throughout Vermont, who have experienced racial microaggressions, and to have those photos and stories here at the State House. We have been approved, so this is no BS, okay? We have been approved for next February, for the whole month of February, to have this I Am Vermont 2 project curated in the State House. This is happening. It's already been approved. So this project will turn into an exposition that will be hung in the State House for the entire month of February, Black History Month, and we will show up here next year, Black Lives Matter Day, with our display up with many, many more people and really fight for our justice and be recognized. Yeah. So I have more information of what the roles are, but what I want people to do now is we have what I Am Vermont 2 Facebook, and this is going to be the immediate meeting means in which you can find out information and start your plugging in. You plug in your picture, plug in your quote, plug in your story, get it going, share it with other people of color, get it going, and through that we'll be connecting and building relationships. We'll be asking people to take on these volunteer positions, which I will briefly say are many different things, from media to tech to journalism to photography. All these things are needed to bring this project to fruition. So today we have Alyssa Chen, who is sitting on the floor there, who is going to be starting the project out for us to have a few things for our Facebook debut, I guess, and she will be taking people's brief stories. So if you would like to vent or get a story out or just talk about a little bit about racial microaggressions or what your experiences are, Alyssa's going to be available, and please sign up so she knows whether people are actually going to come to her. She'll be available and guide you through some questions and video you, and that will be some of the starters of getting the project kicked off. I have information, I have handouts. Please follow us throughout the day so you can learn more and get more information.
Thank you.
So, we're gonna head.
Wait, hold on.
No? Okay.
So I also wanted to mention that on the 27th, we seem to have a lot of calls to action here, which is awesome. On the 27th of this month, we are going to mobilize in St. Albans to fight for the eradication of racism in the Vermont school systems. We're making an example out of BFA High School, Bellows Free Academy, I believe. And so if we would like you to join us in that march so that we don't have to raise another generation who undergoes oppression while trying to be educated. And if you would like to volunteer, please go to the Black Lives Matter Vermont page, Facebook page, and just inbox us or something like that. Again, to reiterate, if you would like to participate in the I Am Vermont 2 project, which everyone here should sign up. So if anyone walks out the door, I don't know why you were here in the first place, because you're part of the problem. So if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, right?
Eldridge Cleaver, right on.
Yeah, so now we're gonna move to room 10, which is downstairs. We're gonna meet with some legislators and have lunch. Fareed has made, what's the name of his catering?
Oh, I have no. Oh, People's Kitchen.
People's Kitchen. So he has a delicious vegetarian meal planned, I believe, and I'm excited to eat and talk with legislators.
And we have a wonderful cake.
Before you break,
Yeah.
so those are two, just so that legislators are clear of where you all are going to be. So going down to room 10 is different than lunch with legislators, unless you all have
where are
specifically
you
reached out.
meeting?
So legislator, so I'm Deanna Gonzalez.
Okay.
And so just the general lunch with legislators, people will assume that you're talking in the cafeteria
Okay.
unless you have individually reached out to your legislator
Oh,
and made an
okay.
appointment with them. So if you want to talk to legislators, it will not be anyone in room 10 unless you have already individually decided that with them.
So the Women's Caucus yielded their time to us and said they would be in room 10.
No,
Can you
in here.
clarify that?
So this is where the Women's Caucus meets in the Ethan Allen room. So
Okay.
so there
So
are
can they meet in room 10 with us to
we have
provide
can-
space?
we've the Women's Caucus has canceled room 10 so that you all can have this space because we were under the impression that room 10 was not available for you all. So legislators are interested in meeting with you and have been encouraged to do that, and we're notified that the Women's Caucus was canceled for that purpose. However, unless you've made individual appointments with people, they're just kind of hanging out, waiting for you to come talk to them. So, and that would be in the cafeteria. And if there are some of you that want to stay here, and some people may be coming here looking for you all, then that's great. But right now, since there's so many people in this room, that wouldn't kind of logistically be possible for everyone to stay.
How many of you are there?
So the Women's Caucus canceled our meeting so that you all could meet with legislators. So there will not be a Women's Caucus happening. So instead, if there are particular legislators that you want to talk to, please go out into the cafeteria, find them. People are on the lookout for you all. Some of you can stay, a handful of you can stay in here in case there are legislators that come in here in order to look for you all.
Diane, I'm sorry to do this all public about it. I'm so confused right now.
Okay.
So, just for transparency, it was said to us that the Women's Caucus yielded their time to us and
Yes.
they would be meeting with us. So, are they together and we said we would be meeting in room 10?
No. So our understanding was that you all needed this room, and so our being the Women's Caucus, and so we gave up our space so that we did not meet today, so that you all could have this room, because our understanding was that room 10 was occupied.
So
the
room
Women's
10 is
Caucus-
open right now. We're supposed to actually
It's
change to
occupied
room
for
10,
a certain
and the
time.
Women's Caucus was supposed to meet us in room 10. is
So
what
that information was not communicated to the Women's Caucus, so we canceled because of that.
So are you saying we don't have room 10 anymore?
I have no idea if
We
you have
do
room 10.
have room 10.
It seems like we
We
have
don't
both
have
rooms.
the caucus anymore.
So we could, just one idea, could people go to room 10 and then people that know the women legislators that are going to be allies be like, hey, women legislators that are allies, come to room 10.
You can do, yes, absolutely. You can do that. You can go out and invite different people down to room 10 to speak with you, or you can just come and find a legislator and ask to sit with them at lunch, or some people can stay in here and wait.
I'll
and
make
see
an
other
announcement in the
people.
cafeteria to go to room 10.
That's not really. That's not a thing that happens. So
It will happen today.
Let's go, people! I have had with Keisha and Kaya. That's not, they said they would be, I'm just confused. It's not the conversation.
Anyone else wants to sign up before you leave, and then I'll come grab you guys.
People of color, specific.
People of color that are willing to tell their stories. Sign up here and I'll grab you.
Molly, I would love for you, as my